What's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon to everyone out there. It's the Earth Master on this wonderful Sunday, Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. June 18th, 2023 is the date, about 10:50 a.m. here along the West Coast. Latest activity looks like a 2.0 into the area of Alaska, also a 5.0 coming in around the Philippines region, it looks like. Also a little bit of activity up off the coast of Japan. A couple earthquakes coming in around the Philippine plate, as noted here on the USGS map as well. 5.0 not coming in yet, but it looks like it's positioned right around this area. All right, what do we got overnight kicking up here? Of course, some further movement into the Tonga area. Starting to see a swarm of activity once again here in this region. This is actually a rather interesting event of earthquake activity, and not for sure exactly what it's leading to. It could be a sign of something bigger brewing around this plate boundary. That could include New Zealand down here as well. This is definitely a head scratcher here, because we did see some deeper movement quakes here down into the Tonga Trench. In the last couple days. Let's bring up the 7 days. In fact, look at that. We just got another one coming in to the Tonga area, 5.1. Let's bring up the last 7 days of 4.5 and above here. And you can see it kind of started off with a swarm of movement down here in the Kermadec Islands. It worked its way up north along the plate boundary here, which is a subduction zone. Pretty lengthy subduction zone, and also a major player in producing some accumulated slip rate here. This average intervals, or at least accumulated slip rate in a year, is 240 mm, which is one of the highest rates out here on the planet in terms of plate dynamics, and the subduction zone levels here fairly high. So this all kind of started off down here, Kermadec Islands. We did see a little bit of, well, we always get deep movement quakes here around Fiji. That's very typical. But this 7.2 came in on the 15th, about 167 kilometers deep, and we've been watching that swarm of activity to just really kick up here. It kind of looks like it's in two separate areas. Here's some of the older, shallower earthquake activity, but again, all this activity that you're seeing here occurred following the 7.2. So that major deep movement definitely put a lot of strain here in this bend. You can see this bend here along the Tonga Trench. And so far, looks like about, I think we had more than that. Let me, no, we had just about 24 earthquakes. I could have swore we had a little bit more here in this area, but either way, 24 earthquakes of considerable size. Quite a few 4s and 5s, even some 6s in there as well. I think the largest we've seen in this cluster is a 6.2. Now, remember, this area is upstream from the deeper movement 7.2 that struck a couple days ago. Well, what does all that mean? It could mean that we could be looking at a much larger earthquake here in this area, which is definitely a very good possibility. How large? It could definitely be above what we've seen down below, but it's hard to say exactly. This is a lot of movement that's taking place here in this area. We may just continue to see the swarm kick off throughout some 5s and 6s, but there's always that possibility of seeing something much larger happening in this area of the plate boundary, and that includes areas down south into the New Zealand area, which sits right smack dab on the plate boundary here, with the subduction zone of the Hikurangi right here off the east coast here of the North Island region. So still kind of watching the New Zealand area here. We did see a 4.8 coming into the south of the Kermadec Islands, a little bit further south of the activity up north here. About midnight my time last night, 57 kilometers deep. EMSC model looks like not a whole lot popping off there across New Zealand. Let me go ahead and zoom over here to the earthquake map from the GeoNet servers and see what we have brewing out here. The last earthquake looks like it was recorded, a 3.1 from yesterday's timestamp. Let's see here. Now this earthquake, see this one right here, showing up pretty nicely across the North Island area. I believe that's going to be that 4.8 that was listed here about midnight. A little bit closer here to the North Island area. Looks like that's about the right timestamp here, almost 12 hours ago. But aside from that, locally here at the New Zealand level, just maybe it looks like we did have maybe another earthquake there from last night. I believe that's at, well, that was almost 24 hours ago here, so that was sometime during the day yesterday. But as far as recent activity goes this morning, I'm not really seeing too much activity out here. A couple smaller quakes being listed up here on the charts. But still, with everything that's going on here around the area, you know, it's got to catch up here eventually, right? Last 30 days at 4.5 and above. We did see quite a bit of movement here across the South Indian Ridge along this plate boundary here of the Australia and the Antarctica area. That is a divergent boundary, meaning separation of the seafloor slowly over time. We don't want any massive opening out there, but the typical fault system out here along the plate boundary is the divergent boundary, and we've seen a lot of activity here. We've seen a lot of activity within the subduction zones to the north of New Zealand, with New Zealand right here pretty much caught in the middle of all this activity. So eventually this segment here is going to move and probably bring a large earthquake to the area. It's got to catch up. So we'll continue to watch this area for some movement today. It's getting very active and very interesting here with this this swarm that's ongoing. Of course, Samoa yesterday, seen that 5.7 coming in, a little bit further up along the Tonga Trench, but overall, you know, trends have been very active here across this region. So that's why I'm still kind of X marks the spot here for this potential larger scale movement down south. Vanuatu area looks like 5.3 earlier this morning, 122 kilometers deep over here around Papua New Guinea. Earthquake there from yesterday, 200 kilometer deep, 4.6. And also today we notice an uptick here around the Philippine plate, as noted on the earthquake 3D globe here, with that 5.2 coming in around the Philippines area. All around the Filipino plate here shows signs of elevated activity today, so definitely keep an eye on that. Around the Mariana Trench, around Guam, we did see a 4.9 coming in, very shallow earthquake here, about 9 o'clock this morning. And one further earthquake up here, back prior to the subduction zone, 4.4. Now, Japan area, if you remember, I'm trying to think yesterday, maybe the day before, a couple days ago, we had a pretty good swarm of activity here around Japan. Here's the movement. Let me show you guys. Most of this activity around 40 to 50 kilometers deep, where the greatest tension or the greatest buildup of pressure tends to be along the subduction zone here. You can have deeper, larger quakes, but for the most part, upstream here, where these earthquakes are taking place, is where you see the largest earthquakes. And we did see a 5.6. We all know that Japan can see much larger quakes, but this little earthquake today, back prior to the subduction zone level, could be a clue that there is some much larger quake activity that needs to take place here. When I see this, it's if this is 100% accurate right prior to the subduction zone where it begins to subduct there, it's a sign that there's quite a bit of strain in that area. So we'll keep that in mind. Look at that. Hold on a second here. Okay, so that today's earthquake is a 4.4, but it looks like yeah, that's from yesterday. So we did actually have another one up here from yesterday, 4.5. And today's quake is a little bit further south, but still prior to that subduction zone. So that even just, reconfirms my suspicion here of a good stress, high stress along the Japan Trench when we see two earthquakes like that back prior to the subduction zone. One from a couple days ago during this whole event, and then one today. So we'll continue to watch this area here for some further movement. Of course, the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench is quiet for now. We did have a little bit of activity on it in the past week. This is another area that is highly overdue, I would say, for some large-scale event. USGS finally picking up on that earthquake here in the Philippines, 5.3. 69 kilometers deep. All right, up into the Alaska area. 5.0 coming in about 2 o'clock this morning. Aside from that, mostly smaller microquakes across that area today. Nothing major going on up north here along the west coast. A little scattered activity across Washington, mainly across the Cascades. There's our earthquake from last night, a 4.4, coming in around the Macama Fault. Since then, well, we got one earthquake this morning, it looks like, on the San Andreas Fault, the northern segment up here. But for the most part, California remains quiet. Aside from that 4.4, it's been microquakes at best. And even the microquakes have been kind of a little on the quiet side in terms of the multitude of them. So, eerily, little quiet. Rest of the states here, not a whole lot going on as we look across the country. Yellowstone National Park, I'm going to chime in there, see what we got. It is the weekend, so even if there's a swarm kicking up, they won't report it until Tuesday. Monday's a holiday, so Tuesday. But looking at Yellowstone, looks like maybe a little small earthquake down here, southern end. But for the most part, no major swarms going on there across Yellowstone for now. Over here into the Caribbean plate, of course, movement across the Puerto Rico area remains, including a 3.0. It seems to be following me. Every direction I move on the map, a new earthquake pops up. Goodness. 3.0 coming into the, looks like the Costa Rica area down here along this plate boundary right now. Not showing up on the USGS map, but EMSC models reporting a 3.0 right now to that area. Looks like we did have a little bit of movement further up north into the Middle America Trench earlier this morning with a couple fours. An earthquake down here in Ecuador early this morning, 5.0, 25 kilometers deep. And further down south into the Chile area, it looks like, in Argentina region, a couple smaller quakes from yesterday and today. Looks like there's a handful of some threes in that mix as well. All right, let's see what else we have. Java Trench area, still kind of stuck out here. It looks like there's a pause in that westward migration along this plate boundary, compacting in this area where that four-pointer is occurring. It's a pretty new earthquake coming in just like an hour or so ago to the southern edge here of the southern end of the Java Trench. Pretty active day if you really think about it. The Western Pacific plate here and adjacent plates around the Philippine plate have been very active over the past week or so, while California remains relatively quiet. Aside from that little four-pointer up outside of Ukiah, it's been awfully quiet. 1.0 up in Alaska right now. I don't know. I still think we got something bigger brewing across this area. At 7.2 a couple days ago, looks like it triggered something. All right, Mediterranean area, mostly 2s and 3s. A little bit of activity across Turkey today. Some movement further up into Romania, it looks like. Atlantic Ocean remains quiet, very quiet. Space weather activity brought to you by solarham.net. Looks like we had an M flare kick up overnight, an M2.5. Look at that. Pretty nice little feature. Well, bam. Looks like it did maybe produce a CME. Let's see here. That was from a couple days ago. As far as the update goes, let's see where that came from. Looks like 3336 produced this beautiful M flare, an M2.5. So let's look at 3336. This is the area that I kind of mentioned last night that has the only possibility of seeing some further, larger scale movement, and it looks like that was right. It's going to be this area down here. This was put out fairly recent. 3336. Hold on a second here. Yeah, I guess that's right. 3330. Go back. Went too far. So this area down here. Yes. Bring up the latest imagery. Looks a little bit more compact on the latest imagery here. Not a whole lot. I wouldn't really expect an M flare from there, but it looks like maybe it definitely produced one. So we'll continue to watch this area for some further development. This one here is it is directly facing us. I don't think it produced a CME. Doesn't look like it here on the chart. With this directly facing us, if this did produce a CME in our direction, it would be a little bit more broader in terms of the time stamp here. Normally the big CMEs that blast off are going to spike up real quickly, and it's going to take a long time for it to go back down on the chart, indicating long duration CME with a possible, or a long duration flare with a possible CME. I don't think it produced one. But either way, the flare threat right now, 99% chance for a C flare. M flare at 30, X flare around 5% chance. We'll continue to watch 3336 for some further flaring. No major space weather events are forecasted. Look at the weather outlook here today. Most of the movement has shifted well to the east and south here in the southern states, with an enhanced risk for severe weather. A 5% possibility, it looks like, of seeing a tornado out there in the 5% range. That includes areas, looks like mostly Mississippi area. Wind events as well. Yeah, it looks like the main threat, though, could be some large damaging hail across a good portion of Jackson, Mississippi, Monroe, Louisiana. And as you can see there in the hatched box, that's a little dashed area. That's the greatest threat for some large hail. And let's see what we got for tomorrow. Looks like that movement's going to further shift to the east around Florida. Here in California, we got some cooler temps coming up right now. Putting a damper on this heat. I think we're only supposed to hit 89 degrees today before a fairly nice trough comes in on Monday. Doesn't look like there's much precipitation with it. Maybe up into Oregon. Could see some snow up there into the mountains, the Cascades area. But for the most part here in California, we're going to be looking at much cooler temperatures. Look at that, well below normal out here along the west coast. Some areas could be maybe 15 degrees below normal, which is fine for me. It's supposed to be about 75 degrees Monday. I mean, we're already feeling the effects of it a little bit today with 89 degrees, but I'll take 75. And this trend out here looks like that cooler weather is going to stick around the west coast for all of this coming week here, and even maybe into next weekend before Let's see here. Well, see how these weather models change? It looks like it's going to stick around all the way until maybe the first week of July. Much cooler weather out here. Look at this heat wave across the western Texas and New Mexico area. These are all above normal temperatures, largely above. So yeah, gonna cook a little bit. I'll take the cooler weather. I'm very happy with that. I'm not gonna complain. Look at that, beautiful. So all right, let's see what else is there. Is there anything else? I think that's about it, folks. Just be safe, stay on guard. A lot of activity here around the Tonga Trench, and you know, when you're sitting here right on the plate boundary, it kind of makes you wonder if that's going to work its way down there. It kind of looks like it wants to, with that 4.8 coming in last night. We'll just watch the New Zealand area. I do have, let's see if I have New Zealand pulled up here. Having some issues with the seismograph stations here recently. I do have Black Stump Farm, which is North Island, New Zealand area, right around the Taupo super volcano here. Lake Taupo super volcano. But for the most part, these stations have been very spotty. Not really reliable in terms of consistency. But we'll see if these come back. If not, I may do a reset of the system. And a lot of people asking what program this is. Well, it's the Global Earthquake Explorer. It's a little. There's many different apps you can use to monitor, seismic activity. This is all public information here, right? So accessing these data stations are pretty easy. Just got to have the app in order to do that, and it's a pretty handy deal. Not all these stations that are listed up here on the map come in, but this is just the defaulted stations. You can add so many more stations here, but there's quite a bit. Some of them work, some of them don't. So it's just one of those things. All right, have a good day. Again, happy Father's Day out there to all the dads. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later tonight. Have a good one, everyone.